Inside the Deck is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, sellers of Magic the Gathering and many other card and board games. GatheringMagic.com, #1 resource on Magic the Gathering, strategy, and culture.
I'm Reid Duke. This is Stoneforge Bant, and it's a legacy deck. This deck, the goal is to establish like a powerful board of either creatures or equipment, and backed up by a small amount of removal spells and counterspells. But essentially, the most common route to victory is either going to be a giant Knight of the Reliquary or an equipped creature. This general style of deck is something that I'm really comfortable with, while not necessarily this exact collection of 75 cards. I have tried some other decks in Legacy and really missed the consistency of the Noble Hierarch Green Sun Zenith package. So I returned to this deck. I wouldn't say that I've made any very serious innovations on my own, although the particular assortment of cards is my own choice. But yeah, I guess the main decision in this deck is to have Force of Will either in your main deck or your sideboard, or not at all. For this tournament, I've chosen to have it on my sideboard. I have a handful of kind of utility lands that I can search for with Knight of the Reliquary, including Karakas, Horizon Canopy, and Wasteland. 4 copies of Wasteland. 1 Dryad Arbor is really important to be able to Green Sun Zenith for 0. And then beyond that, it's a pretty standard fetch land, dual land mana base. I have 1 of each basic, but a high number of fetch lands makes your Knight of the Reliquary really powerful. 4 Noble Hierarchs to complement the 4 Green Sun Zeniths as turn 1 acceleration. I have 4 Stoneforge Mystics. I have 4 Knight of the Reliquaries. And then beyond that, I have a couple utility creatures that I can search for with Green Sun Zenith in the right circumstances. Scavenging Ooze in the late game when the graveyards are full, or against a graveyard combo deck. Qasali Pridemage, destroy an artifact or enchantment, and Gaddock Teeg is another card against combo. My spells are kind of few and far between just to make the deck function a little bit more smoothly. I have 4 Brainstorms and 1 Ponder. I have Swords to Plowshares, which is going to be common card for any white fair deck. I have 3 Dazes as my only main deck disruptive spells because those cards are really effective in combination with Noble Hierarch in almost any matchup. I have some more counterspells on the sideboard to back them up. And my other spells are 2 equipment to get with the Stoneforge Mystics. I guess the go-to equipment is Batterskull because it's so powerful if you can just tap the Mystic to put it into play. However, if my opponent has some troublesome creatures, or if I have a suspicion that my Stoneforge Mystic is not going to survive, then I'll go for a cheaper equipment like the Jitte or the Sword. Almost all the cards on the sideboard are for combo matchups, with the exception of Sword of Fire and Ice and Life from a Loam, just to give me a little extra edge post-sideboard in fair matchups. The other 13 are really to defend myself against fast combo decks. But for me, I geared the main deck for the creature matchups and Force of Will just as a sideboard card to help against combo. I have 2 Relic of Progenitus against dedicated graveyard decks, but also something like Rug Delver that has Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose. 2 more Meddling Mage as anti-combo cards. To support the Force of Wills, get the blue card count up, I just have a variety of 1 of disruptive blue cards. 1 more equipment in Sword of Fire and Ice. 1 Life from the Loam, which is really good in a matchup where, say, both players have Wastelands and you're fighting over mana dominance. And then 1 copy of Humility, which is the best card against Sneak and Show, which is one of the top decks in Legacy right now. Jace is obviously just a super powerful card, one of the hallmark Legacy cards, and probably the best 4-drop that these colors have access to. But more importantly in this deck is it provides an alternative angle of attack. Other than Jace, pretty much all my threats are creatures, so I'm going to be naturally fairly weak to cards like Terminus, Supreme Verdict, whatever it might be. But Jace can come down and mean that my opponent now has to deal with my creatures and my Planeswalkers, and do it quickly, or else I'm going to have an irreversible advantage. It's a deck that's, like I said, very consistent. There are going to be very few games that you feel like you're just completely not in the game. So that, in addition to having a lot of play to it, flexibility of the Brainstorms, the Counterspells, and just having no very serious weaknesses, I think it's a good deck for a Legacy expert to try to pick up.